With investigative journalist and historian Tony Gosling joining me live in the UK. Tony, it's thought that American investigators were looking for a potentially dangerous government leak. So wasn't this justified in terms of national security?
Well, let's have a look at what this was all about. It looks as if, due to the timing of this 2 months of telephone information that they've taken, this is 2 whole months, over 20 phone lines, it was to do with actually what is effectively war crimes by the CIA over in Yemen. I mean, the CIA's view and the American military's view is that you know, that there are all sorts of crimes going on by the Yemenis, and the Associated Press have been exposing them. Actually, what's been going on here in reality is Associated Press are exposing war crimes by people in their own country. What we've got here squaring up is the American military-industrial complex, led in this case by Eric Holder. I mean, he is the US Attorney General, but he is some kind of devil's advocate. If you remember the film, he's that kind of lawyer. He's the first ever in American history to be held in contempt of Congress. So he has certainly not got his hands clean. On the other side is the tradition of a free press. And the effect of this massive trawl, effectively a fishing operation through months of Associated Press's telephone lines, is it has a horrific, chilling effect on journalism. It also means that individuals who, whistleblowers, etc., people with stories, can no longer trust the journalists. So if they go with confidential information to those journalists and have confidential phone conversations, they are no longer guaranteed that those journalists can keep those conversations secret, because the Justice Department has come in and done a massive trawl along this whole 2 months period. One can understand it maybe if it's a small investigation over a couple of days or a particular phone line, possibly. But this is a fishing operation, and it is an appalling attack, really, on the freedom of the press in America by a government in the US which is out of control.
And you say trust in journalism here is being compromised, but of course you should know this, there in the UK, can journalists really be trusted, bearing in mind the recent phone hacking scandal?
Well, I think that journalists are constantly fighting back. I don't think the situation in Britain is quite as difficult as it is over in the US at the moment. I mean, they're going to the line, it seems, with kind of operations like this. And what effectively is going on is Eric Holder is a puppy dog. He's not really sticking up for the American people. He's not doing his job. What he's doing is the job of the American military-industrial complex, which is very frightened about actually being exposed by people like Associated Press for the things that they're doing. Yes, I mean, we do have problems here in Britain, but it's not quite as bad as in the US. Journalists and lawyers have to really watch out for governments that snoop on their information and have to stop it stone dead.
But Tony, hasn't the Associated Press now managed to put the Obama administration in a very embarrassing situation by exposing this surveillance web? So this is ultimately perhaps a victory for the press there now.
Well, of course, this does have to be exposed, but like I say, there's nothing that's going to stop this chilling effect, which is making it very difficult for journalists and their sources, or journalists to keep their sources private. In this kind of situation where the Justice Department gets its hands on all these phone calls, that's almost impossible. And of course, this is all driven by the avarice of, as I said, the military-industrial complex, who have their eyes on the Middle East oil and the Yemeni oil. This is nothing to do with, you know, trying to stop terrorism or anything like that. This is just those who are trying to stop the US taking over oil deposits in the Middle East, you know, effectively covering up for that, actually what is illegal activity.
But also, just another point here, is it not exposing the incompetence within government agencies? If they're worried about information being leaked by journalists, shouldn't they be focusing on finding the source of that leak within their own ranks rather than targeting the messenger, just briefly?
Well, you're absolutely right. Of course, you know, you should never be targeting the messenger. What's happening is the messengers are coming up with bad news, and those in authority in the US don't like it. I mean, it's a similar situation in a way here. We have secret courts being brought in here in Britain, and ultimately this is the rise of effectively a kind of police state where the government thinks it can do what it wants. What we're seeing is erosion of some of the basic civil liberties that we've said for the last 30, 40 years. This is what we hold dear. We're saying that, oh, these terrible Al-Qaeda, etc., are trying to take those civil liberties away. Well, Al-Qaeda aren't taking them away. Our own governments are taking them away.